everybody, to another Creative Community Conversations. My name is Carrie Irene Crosby. I am the CEO and founder of the HBA Impact Group, where we plant positive seeds of change on a consistent basis. And today my guest is Noël. We're going to be talking about who she is, where she comes from, her background, and her journey to being a life coach. I saw her online. I see her videos all the time. She's always has this great energy about her. She speaks raw. She speaks openly about self-love, about healing, and really embodying that positive energy inside of you so that you can be your best self. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. We'll be right back.
How beautiful. Carrie.
All right, so for y'all that don't know me, I can be a whole vibe, right? And you know why I'm a whole vibe? Why do you think I'm a whole vibe? You don't know? Anybody got a guess of why? Because the energy, because I'm fly, because what else? What else we got? Because I'm Carrie. That's why. I'm a whole vibe because I decided to just be me.
So my name is Noël. I am a personal development coach, which is a certified life coach. I, for the past 4 years, have been in this kind of personal development world, coaching and loving it. And it kind of unfolded a bit from a previous life I was leading that no longer in alignment with me anymore. And yeah, I really enjoy what I do now. I love all aspects of working with people, understanding their truths, their vulnerabilities, hearing what they struggle with. People are in pain. Everybody is hurting, and everyone really, we're all trying to figure this thing called life out. It's just a matter of us kind of being able to share and be vulnerable and ask for help and be kind to one another. And so that is what is appealing to me about coaching. It's being able to help them identify within themselves their strengths and that they are capable and that they do have power and they do have access to a plethora of amazingness within them. And I think a lot of that is untapped because the world outside us, so many of us are reliant on the world outside us to dictate and tell us who we need to be, how we need to show up, what success should look like, and all of those things. And I don't lead that. I don't believe in that because I was leading a life that really wasn't a lot in alignment with me for a long time.
You said you don't believe, success looks one way. So that kind of goes right into what you're saying now. Leading that life before that you had agreed to, but then in the midst of it realized that it wasn't what you thought it was. So tell me a little bit about that. Like what were you feeling then?
Well, okay, so let me take you back. I grew up in Long Island in Valley Stream. This is my hometown, and I'm back in Valley Stream now, in Long Island, in New York. And basically, it was a great upbringing that I had for the most part, but always feeling like I was, a little bit inferior to others. Just had this feeling growing up that I was not enough, that I needed to work harder. And I think partially, of course, that goes back to childhood things with, family and dynamics and all of that. And I did feel like I was in competition with my brother growing up, and I had to fight for the attention of my father with, I think with that said, it put me in a place where I was very competitive and I wanted to always have that validation from family, from outside, from friends. Like I wanted people to think I was great. I studied fashion merchandising in college. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, which is it's a very well-known school for the fashion business. that I enjoyed. I loved being around creative energy. I loved the vibe of, the fast pace of New York City, and there's all walks of life, and so it felt right. And as I stepped into the fashion business, when I got my first job in the fashion industry, I think it was like in 2005, right out of college, it was all about just working your way up the ladder and building. And you need, I would work till 11 o'clock at night. I'd work weekends whenever they wanted me to work. Because I needed to prove that I was capable of doing the job. I needed to prove that I wanted it, that my heart beated for this brand that I was working for. Ultimately, you realize there's a lot of toxicity. There's a lot of egos. There's a lot of people that care about themselves. They don't care about you. They don't care about your career growth. They just want you to do the job, put your head down, keep going and do it. And, I started seeing that there was this kind of toxicity out there. And I started realizing, is this really for me anymore? Do I want to be in this energy? Am I inspired by these people? I would see people working around the clock, miserable, having literal like heart palpitations because they were so stressed, and not feeling good about themselves, and saying that they didn't have enough time to spend with their family and loved ones, and again, miserable, not loving what they were doing, but doing it. And I would often be like, wow, this is not cool. And I don't want to be like this. But I could see that I was turning into that. I was becoming that because I was in it for so long. And I realized at that point that I don't know if I could do this till I retire. What do you do? Because this is all I've known. And so you're getting paid great money. You're getting paid six-figure salary. I was living in a great place in Brooklyn. I had a great apartment. I had a great lifestyle. I was going to all the trendy spots in Manhattan. I was doing all the things, but something inside was off, and I didn't know how to pivot, right? Because on the outside, everybody thought I was living this glamorous, amazing, successful life because that's how it appeared. But on the inside, I was struggling because I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. I couldn't be myself. I couldn't honor myself. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I had a voice. Like I just had to do what everybody else was doing.
Yeah, I know that feeling well because I was in retail for 25 years myself. And it
Mhm.
is that way. You just get stuck in that cycle of doing what you know you're good at. Because that was my struggle to get out. Because I was so good at what I did, but I'm just like, I'm exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically.
Yeah.
And it's just like I can't keep up this stamina of what I created for my own self. I'm like, man, I did this. I accepted these roles and these jobs and these responsibilities. And then you get to that catch 22 to where you're like, I don't want to renege on what I said that I was going to do in order to do something else. But you know good and well in your heart that it's time to do something else. And people do get stuck in that pivot. Do you find that that's where a lot of your clients are? Just stuck in the pivot. They know they need to pivot, but just don't know how.
Yeah, I do. And
Yeah.
it's scary because, I put myself back into that place. It's scary because you're like, oh my God, there's so many things that go through your mind. Like, well, what do I do? Like, what would I do? What are my transferable skills that I could apply to something else? Will I have to take a pay cut if I do something else? Will I have to go back to school and spend more money, time, and energy in that after I've already built up something that has quote unquote been successful? Like, and then you also think, well, what are the judgments? What would people say? What would people think? Uh, you know, and then you're in a place where you don't necessarily want to start over again either. You're gonna have to start over. It's gonna be a learning curve. You're gonna have to go through, the trenches to some degree. And so that right there is already like, ugh, that's too much. So let me just continue to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And let me continue to be miserable. And so my way of coping with the misery was going to alcohol and putting myself out there. Like I as soon as I think it was, I don't know, I was probably drinking 4 or 5 days a week, 4 days a week. Every happy hour there was, I was there. I was like, okay, 5:30 to all my friends who I worked with.
Yeah. Where are we going?
Yeah, like I'll meet you here at this time, and you know,
Yep.
and then it would be, but they were also in similar situations where they were doing the same thing, so it was normalized. Like we all thought we would just go to happy hour, and then we would just all complain about our jobs, because that's what we did. We would drink and complain, and everybody felt the same. And it was just, we were just all in this toxic energy, and it was just getting kind of, it was on like a spin cycle. It just kept happening over and over again. And then, you know, it got to the point where I was going crazy. Like I was on 14-day drinking binges because it was just, I was not happy with my life. And then I would be sick. And then, you know, the other thing too is like it affects all areas of your life, because if you're not happy in one area, it spills over in others. In my dating life was a mess. And, you know, it was just this constant like, why do I keep dating the same type of guy? Why do I keep dating the same and more of the same and the same? And I couldn't see it, but I was a big part of the problem. You know, I was the reason why I was calling in these types of people into my life. And, you know, I couldn't see that though then. And then ultimately, you know, it got to a place where I wasn't rising to the occasion of how I was feeling. I was not honoring myself. I continued, like I said, to do the jobs, stay, you know, do the things that I wasn't happy with. And then ultimately, February 2018, I was let go from my job. So, you know, and at the time I was so upset. My ego was broken. I thought my world was crashing down. Like I've never gotten let go from a job. Oh my God, I don't even love what I'm doing, and now I'm not even good at it. I got let go from my job. You know, all these different narratives were playing in my mind, and it was my ego, you know, and that at that point I had said to myself, well, what am I going to do? Like knowing that I don't want to do this fashion thing anymore, but what would I do? Didn't know. So what did I jump back into? Started going on interviews again to get, you know, go back into the fashion business because I knew it, and that's where the money was. And, you know, in my mind, I'm like, well, I can't look like I can't get a job. Like, what are people going to think? So I have to just go and get a job. So, you know, it's always based on other people. What are they thinking? How are they going to feel? You know, it's not necessarily about how I felt. It's how am I being perceived by others? And that was very important to me for so long in my life. Like the perception. I have to look the part. I have to act a certain way for them, but not for me. And so I did. I jumped back going on these interviews, and then I've got a phone call one day from a friend of mine who was like, she was a bit older than me, probably 10 years older than me. And she was just, she had her own, she had a lot of wealth and money. And she says to me, well, I'm going away to Bali for a month, and I want you to come with me. And I'm like, oh, well, that's lovely. Thank you. But no, I just got let go from my job.
Yeah. Have you got your ATBA flyer yet? Well, what you waiting for? Click the link above and support ATBA Impact Group as we plant positive seeds of change on a consistent basis, so you can keep looking good, feeling good, and smelling good. All the good. It's good stuff.
I put the good stuff in. I put the good stuff in.
Phone call call one day from a friend of mine who was like, she was a bit older than me, probably 10 years older than me. And she was just, she had her own, she had a lot of wealth and money. And she says to me, well, I'm going away to Bali for a month, and I want you to come with me. And I'm like, oh, well, that's lovely. Thank you. But no, I just got let go from my job.
Yeah.
I just can't go to Bali. And she's like, this is so she said to me, she goes, I don't understand you. She said, you complain about your job, you complain about how you didn't love it, you complain about how miserable it made you, you complain. You've been given an opportunity to now not be in that. So why don't you take the time to think about what it is that you do want? And it was like something hit me when she said that. Like, she's right. Oh my God, she's right. Like, wow, she's so right. And it's very, like, it makes sense. But in my mind, I couldn't make it make sense, because I thought to myself, well, if I go with her on this trip to Bali for 1 month without having a job lined up, that would be very irresponsible of me, because I was brought up and always told, you can't leave a job without having a job. If you lose your job, you got to get a job. Like, you have to. These are the things. So when she was like telling me, oh, I want to book your flight, come with me, I was like, no, I have to be responsible. I have to get a job first. And so that night, when she sent me, we had this conversation that night, I went to sleep, and I couldn't really sleep. I kept thinking about it, but something inside me was like, you got to go. Like, something in my gut was screaming, you need to go. So the next morning I called her up and I said, I don't know who the hell I am right now. I don't know why this is happening to me, but I have to go with you. I'm going. And she said, okay, let's do this. She actually bought me the ticket. She bought me the ticket because I was going there. I was going to help her do some things. And I stayed in Bali for a month. It changed my life. It changed my life. It completely.
Spirit was like, yes.
It opened my eyes to a different way. I mean, I got there and there was just calm. There was peace. There was quiet. There was, it was just me being able to think and process my thoughts and connect with myself, and, see other ways of people living their lives and how happy they are with not maybe having all of this New York City things. And it showed me a lot. It gave me like, oh, this is a new perspective. I've never been shown this perspective. I never knew this was an option in terms of people could live like this. I was just thrown into, you have to do this. You have to work hard. You have to keep working. You have to work harder than your boss. You have to continue to work. And to the point where you're getting heart palpitations, and that's normal. And you keep working. So very different lifestyles. So when I saw people enjoying life, smiling, just being okay with being surrounded by nature and beauty and stillness, it was like, oh my God, this is medicine. I need this. And so obviously after that month, I had to come back. And, that was hard for me. Leaving Bali was very hard for me because I had started liking this way of living. And when I came back, I was in a depression. It was rainy. It was cold. It was New York City energy. It was fast. And I needed to get a job because I needed to pay my bills. So I did what I know how to do, which is go get a job back in fashion. And I got a job. And I worked at that company, at Ralph Lauren, for 4 months. And then I realized, this is me going backwards. This is me going the wrong way. This is me going against everything that I've just discovered, this beautiful vibe that I was in. This is me taking that away and erasing it. I can't do this.
So when you got into that space, what were, because you said a phrase that I'm probably going to steal from you and give you credit for it. But transferable skills. What were those transferable skills that you saw within yourself that said, you know what, I could do something else with that?
I was big on negotiating. So in my old role in the fashion business, I was in production and manufacturing. So I was more or less the liaison between the design teams for the fashion brand I worked for and the merchandising team, and corresponding with the overseas factories who were making the products. So I was like in charge of essentially the timelines and making sure we were hitting our timeline. So communicating between the factories, like, this is when we need the goods in the store. So what we're going to have to do is, we need to know when we have to book the fabric. We need to know when you're starting to sew, when you're cutting, when the inspection is happening. So I was really kind of monitoring that whole process and working with them through that. So I knew I could do a lot and multitask and do those things, and I was good at that. So I thought in my mind that, I could be an entrepreneur and I could do something online. Didn't exactly know what at the time, like know exactly what, but it was ruminating in my mind. So, I like I said, I was in a process now where I came back, got a job, wasn't happy, and I decided September 2018, after like 3 or 4 months of working, I needed to figure out my exit plan. I needed to get the exit plan going and getting out of the fashion business. Um and I realized that I needed to give myself a concrete timeline, like, because if I didn't, I was going to keep doing this. I was going to keep going through this. So, like I said, September 2018, I made the decision that I needed to change, and I decided I need more Bali in my life, so I'm going to move there. Essentially, people thought I was crazy. Oh, you're going to move to a little tropical island across the world? You're a city girl. Like, what are you doing? And I thought, you know what? It sounds crazy, I know. And it's crazy to me too, but I owe it to myself to answer the call and see what it is. Because if I don't do this, at the time I was 36. And I said, now is the time. The 28th of December, I was packed up and on my one-way flight across the world.
Awesome. So how'd you come across or make the decision to go into coaching?
So
Yeah.
when I got to Bali, a lot of my New York ways came with me, obviously, because they were embedded. They're embedded into the person I was. And so the drinking, the smoking, the going out and partying, that was all there. Also, we were up against the pandemic, which nobody in the whole world knew what was going on. So there was the scarcity mindset. I was scared. I was like every day, not knowing what's happening back in New York with my family. And at the time they were hit hardest in New York in March of 2020. And I was nervous. And so I just went to alcohol. I just went to drinking and that continued for probably the first 6 months, 7 months I was there. I was pretty much going out, partying, drinking, doing the same thing. And I realized, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I am so drained. I'm so tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't. So I made the commitment one day, because I was so fed up with myself and being hungover and not feeling good, and just said I didn't come to Bali to continue these habits and these ways. I didn't come here for this lifestyle. I came here to change. So I realized I needed to get honest with myself. And so a day after my 38th birthday, I made a commitment to myself. I turned 38 December of 2020. And I decided I'm not doing it anymore. So I decided to move out of the area I was living in Bali, which was very much expats, a lot of partiers, a lot of people going out, friends I had made. I said, I want to move away from these people. I need to go. And I moved to Ubud, which is more of the spiritual kind of yoga area where all the yogis go. And I stayed there in a little bungalow in the middle of the jungle in the rice fields, in solitude, like complete solitude. And from that point on, I started going down the kind of rabbit hole of, I don't want to see people. I want to just work on myself. I don't want to drink. I don't want to party. I don't want to do any of those things. I started eating a lot healthier. I started just having tons of fruit and veggies and doing juice fasts and doing meditations and going to yoga. And I realized at that point, I felt so good. I felt so good. And I realized it was time to assess my life. And that's when I started doing the deep introspective work and really going deeper within myself. And I did a lot of inner childhood stuff. I worked with a coach. I worked with just wanted to read and learn and understand me and get to know me and understand that, you know, who I was. There was a death and there's now this kind of rebirth, and it's okay. But at this place, I am a new person. I am growing into this new person. And with that, I realized I want to help people who struggle in the Western world, you know, because we're tied down by the jobs and the constant pressure of having success and being more and getting more and attaining more and doing more and more, that I want people to understand that that's killing you. That is not necessarily what your soul wants. That's what other people want for you. And you're riding on that versus going within yourself and understanding, what do you want? What is this costing you by not doing this? By you continuing on this way, what is that really doing for you? And so that's when I decided I wanted to start coaching. It was during 2021 when I was in the process of that transformation. It was really clear I want people to see their truth. I want people to go back to taking off the layers. And that's how it started. And then from there, Carrie, I'll get back into, and then from there, I was there for 2 years and I was doing this work, and I realized I loved it so much. I just loved being there, and I was in solitude and I was happy, you know, doing my thing and getting up in the morning or going for early sunrise walks and just seeing the view and the local people who are so lovely in Bali and just loving it. And then I got a call like probably May of 2022 that my grandmother was really ill.
It's really all about this right here. We do things according to the way that we see the world, which is shaped by our experiences. When you're able to see the reasons of your why of the decisions that you make, it can actually propel you forward. This thing right here is such a powerful weapon that we can use in our everyday lives to move us forward and out of situations and circumstances that we find ourselves in. Sometimes we are born into things and we believe that they are normal, but if something in your life does not feel right, it is probably not right for you. You have an opportunity to change your life according to the decisions that you make, but you have to realize that there is a decision that is to be made.
That my grandmother was really ill. And so from that point, I had to come back. And that was hard for me to want to come back to New York and come back to not such good news that my grandma was ill, and also face all of the New York things that, you know, I had left behind. But it was my time. It was time to take the tools that I had acquired in Bali and the practices and put them into use where I needed it most.
It's a difficult thing for sure to be in a place and not become that place. And I think it's a very needed skill for a lot of people who know that they're not where they're supposed to be, but they can change who they are without having to change where they are. Because I mean, I that's why I am where I am, because I was in Memphis and Ooh wee, Memphis is different. I am such a country bumpkin, and Memphis, it was so hard. It was so sterile. It was like very cold, and I don't mean temperature. I mean energetically.
Yeah,
It was
no, I
just
get it.
it was very cold, and it was just like. I ran from there as fast as I could. But like you, like now that I'm in Alabama, there's a lot of things that I brought to Alabama with me that I should have left in Memphis. But I realized it wasn't because it was in Memphis, it was because it was in me. Because I had built myself in order to adapt to where I was. So when I came to a different place, I had to work on releasing those things and filling myself up with something else, because it's just like everywhere I go, I forget who says that quote, but everywhere I go, there I am. Because
Love
there
that.
I was. So now that you're back in New York, you're operating a successful coaching business, and you got a lot of workshops and stuff. And I know you mentioned one that everybody will see in ATBA group. You have the workshop coming up. Tell us about that. What is it about, and what can people expect to get from it?
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I am doing a workshop on self-love. Love is every day, always, right?
Yes.
And I think we get so caught up on our attachment to another that we don't often look at our attachment to ourselves. Like we don't think about the love for ourselves first, right? I want us to not feel bad if we're not in a relationship, or if we are. How can we show up in our true essence, honoring ourselves, and being that person that we want in our lives for ourselves first? How can we honor that within us? How can we, there's so for so long in my life I wanted a man to be all these things for me, and then I looked back and I'm like, I wasn't that for me. I wasn't those. How could I ask somebody to do that when I wasn't even honoring myself in that way? And so this workshop is really going to be focused on assessing, are you showing up for yourself? Are you showing yourself love? Are you nourishing yourself? Are you making decisions that are in alignment with what you say you want, or are they going against you? Some people don't realize that what they're doing and choosing are going against them, and they're not honoring themselves. I thought for so long, me doing things for other people and putting my needs last that was me being good, and I was helping people. But really, it was sabotaging me. I was betraying me. I was abandoning me. I was walking away from myself. And I was always left with this feeling of, oh, I got it. Maybe I need to do more for them. Maybe I need to, you know, go above and beyond for people. And I was always exhausted. So what I've realized is I've learned boundaries. I've learned when to say no, how to discern the certain people I'm giving my energy to, who deserves it, and that I come first, and that my love for other people is there, but my love for me is everlasting. It's unconditional. It demands radical acceptance of me. And the other thing too is we need to own that, because if not, we're going to be looking for others to fill these kind of wounds and voids within us, and that's not their job. That's not their job. It's our job to do that for ourselves first and foremost. And what I found when I stepped into this love bubble is that it's so powerful that it's almost like a drug, that it gets me high. I am high on the love I have for myself because I never was. And with that, I want to be in a position where I'm giving you 100%. If I'm doing for you, I'm giving you 100%, but I have to give that to me first. And I'm a better person to you when I do that for me first.
One of my favorite music artists is Londrell, and one of his lyrics says, "Love is not to complete, it's to complement." And I thought that was so powerful, especially in relationships. We looking for people to complete us, or our better half, or even other half, just 50-50. It's like, no, you have to be whole and complete. and they have to be whole and complete. And it's the only way to complement each other in a relationship is to bring that love for self so that it can spill over into other people.
Yes.
Because we really do need to and should give from our overflow, not our reservoir.
Right.
We have to be completely full and ready to offer ourselves to other people. So that's amazing. So tell me about your client base. And then I know you mentioned women, but do you work with men and women or mainly women?
I do work with men and women. I have actually like 4 or 5 men that I coach,
Okay,
and it's great.
nice.
It's great. And you know what I find too, it's like they're listen, women might be drawn to me because I'm a female, because yes, there is a part of me that is also an activist for women and moving women forward, but at the same time, men need to be doing this work too, right? It's important for them to have an outlet, to have a voice, for them to be vulnerable, because for so long, there's that stigma. Men have to be strong. They have to, they have to keep it. You can't be vulnerable and share your feelings and emotions because then you're weak. It's like we get too caught up in that stupid shit in this world where it's like we both, men and female, we both need to exist within our with masculine and feminine. There needs to be a balance. In men, there is the same. In women, there is the same. We also need to know, how to balance that out. For so long in my life, I operated in my masculinity, full force masculinity. And that's because there was a part of me that did not feel safe as a female, that I could honor my femininity, that I could be softer, that I could go with the flow, that I could be, that I could be soft and still. I couldn't because I was in survival mode. In my opinion, I was in survival mode. And a lot of people are operating in that energy and thinking that if you share your emotions and your feelings and you're vulnerable, that you're weak. No, that's actually your strength. That is strength right there, is when you can do that, when you can own who you are, when you can operate from a sense of, the balance within you, where you're not in survival mode, where you're not feeling like you have to, be so there is a time where you do need to be in your masculine more. But you need to also be able to come back to your feminine. I was never in my feminine. I mean, I would even hear it when I was dating men too. I would, there were things that I was doing that you know, I was taking in a way, I was emasculating them.
And there's an energy around that.
Right.
Sometimes we allow people to tell us who we should be depending on what they need. But we need to present ourselves as who we are so that we can attract what we want. And
Yeah.
it's two completely different energies, and it's just, it's very important, which is why I believe that self-love workshop is so important for people to attend, because you need to know what love feels like for you, what good love feels like for you, because everybody ain't the same. There's some people that thrive in relationships that bicker because they don't take bickering to heart. It's just something that they do as like a quirk that they have, one of their
Right.
personality traits or whatnot. But if you don't know that about yourself and you go to do that with someone else and then they take it a certain way, all of a sudden you're in defensive mode of being mean or vindictive or too sarcastic, when truly you're just coming from a place of playfulness.
Right.
And then now all of a sudden you're in a relationship where you're constantly arguing because they can't handle your personality, but you can't handle your personality because you've allowed someone else to tell you what your personality is, when it's really not that way. So like self-love is so important because you just really need to know yourself. Every quality that other people see as a bad quality, it's not always a bad quality. It's just who you happen to be at that time. And if someone will nurture that quality, then you go back into cute and quirky instead of confrontational.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about with that feminine energy. We have to be within that feminine energy to be able to honor our emotions so that we're not scared to just honestly be ourselves instead of trying to prove that we're not. We can just say, okay, if that's what you think, then obviously we're not compatible. Cool.
Right.
And go on about your business. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's really a good way of putting it. It's important to learn ourselves and understand ourselves, right? I think a lot of times in my past relationships or whatever, like I had no clue. I was clueless. Like, really, I thought I knew, but I was operating from a place of ego and not really my authenticity. So who really was that was an actress. Whereas,
Yeah.
now it's different. It's like, if I don't get joy out of certain, like, I have to know what brings me joy. I have to understand, my love language, be able to communicate that to somebody so they understand, like you said, like what are the things, because I might receive something differently. Like, some people have, what's it called? They need like affirmations and stuff.
Right.
And that's great, but that might not work for me because I don't necessarily need that. And so if somebody's constantly telling you that might kind of get annoying, and you're like, this is not a thing.
Yeah. I'm that way too. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
You know?
Yeah, but can you sweep the floor once in a while? Like,
Yeah,
for me, like,
some acts of kindness for me, please. Thank you.
yeah, all those things. And, languages, I feel, and people ask me all the time, have you read that book? And I'm like, I haven't and I won't. Only because I feel like we as human beings evolve and expand so much that if we feel like we figured out what someone's love language is and then they change, it causes so much discord in relationships, because now we, at the person that's trying to give your love language, we feel like we're not enough. We're at a loss. We don't know what to do because we got used to doing something the same way.
Right.
And as someone who received it a certain way and now it's old and we need something different, we feel like that we have to stay in an old energy in order to please who we're with, because we don't want them feeling like that we were lying about what was. So, but when you can find someone that you can grow with,
Right.
that starts with how much do you love you, though? Because if you can accept the fact that you're expanding and that you're growing, you find a better language to express that to whoever you're with. But the one relationship that does last forever is the one that you have with yourself. So
Yeah.
that one has to be the one that's most important.
That's it.
Yeah,
Coming
absolutely.
into this world, but with you, and you're gonna leave with you. So
That's it.
That's
it. That is it. That is absolutely. Okay, so when is your workshop? Tell us the information where we can find it.
So just a 1 hour, and it's like I said, we're gonna do some activities. There's gonna be great women that are also joining, so it's good community, and build a little bit of a network. And yeah, it's just all about how we can tap into practicing loving ourselves and really honoring ourselves. And I think that is like the most important. Like I always say, the work you do on yourself is the most important work you'll ever do in your life. Like I don't care if you can run $1 billion business or be a CEO or whatever, that's great. But the work you do on yourself, this stuff evolves, it changes, it grows. As long as you're doing this work and you're in tune and in alignment with yourself, and you know yourself and you love yourself, like that to me is the best achievement you'll ever make in your life.
It's another one for the book. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate you. Please join me again next Sunday for another creative community conversation. And as always, I love you, and ain't nothing you can do about it.